Sustainability is an illusion. And before you try to cancel me, I think we need to talk about the ways in which we see sustainability in dominant media cultural spaces. So an interesting topic that recently came about is the idea of, is your lifestyle sustainable? I know in other videos we talked about zero waste style, the embracement of imperfect environmentalism, the death of the zero waste movement. But today I wanted to really talk about the idea of how corporatized and how horrific it is message to actually make people that are watching this video to feel bad that they're not doing enough for the planet. One of the things I was reflecting about back recently this week, I was taking a walk here in LA and it's summer heat wave, so maybe my head was a little bit out of it. I used to be actually more sustainable as a kid growing up. So for those who don't know me, I grew up here in the Los Angeles region, specifically in the San Fernando Valley area. I grew up in poverty. And one of the things I was reflecting back is the lifestyle choices I had. When it comes to what I do today as a climate media creator, it's a bit hypocritical of the lifestyle I live today. Even though the amount of wealth has increased and what I'm having to be able to have a stable income and hire employees and be able to support my family, I still have a large environmental impact, and that's because, literally one of the biggest sources of my environmental pollution today is flying. And I'm not trying to shame individuals who fly. I'm just critically analyzing myself of I have this massive platform today selling this idea or consumption of sustainability and what it should look like. I try my best to be sustainable, but just because I'm vegan, that doesn't automatically make me a sustainable, ethical person. What are other practices and engagements that I'm engaging in to ensure divestment from those exploitative institutions? And so one of the things I was recognizing when I was poor is that, for example, transportation. Fun fact, and I've probably been trolled so many times for this, is that when people ask me, well, do you drive a car? And I'm saying, no, I don't have a car. Actually, I don't even have a license. So you can't try to make fun of me for trying to emit the planet. I grew up here in LA relying on public transportation. I took the metro growing up my entire life because the school bus stop in my area was defunded growing up. My mom couldn't drive and my dad had to go work early. So my siblings and I would take the metro growing up. I was actually saving money and carbon emissions because I couldn't even afford to take a car and buy a car. And that's something that I always take allegiance to, is that a lot of poor people, one of the ways in which they're sustainable and they don't think they're environmentalists is sometimes relying on the only public schools, the only public system that they can have is the metro. And these are things where a lot of people feel ashamed taking the metro. I mean, I remember growing up when I went to these affluent programs and different things, having to say, oh, I took the metro here, and they're like, why can't you just drive here? Or your parents can't drive you here? And I'm like, well, my dad's the only one that can drive, so I would have to take the metro. But transportation is one of the things that I always tell people is that I grew up taking the bus, now I'm working, taking flights literally every other week. And it's that carbon emission is so high. I didn't grow up traveling. My parents didn't have money whenever it was high school or middle school programs to go to these different islands or to go to, different countries or states. My parents didn't have money to fly me out, and I'm not ungrateful for that. They took me to the park, they took me to nearby neighborhoods or to my godmother's house in the valley. Those are examples where it's I did travel. The first airplane that I ever took in my life was when I was 17 to go to Berkeley to tour the college. So already at that time, it's very interesting to see my relationships with friends, because they were oh yeah, when I was 4, 5, 6, or 13, 14, my parents were taking me there. I'm oh, my parents couldn't afford it. I don't blame them. I don't ever want to shame them. I love them to death. But it's those are things where it's oh, shoot, now I have immense privilege to travel every other week, and yet I'm over here using so much emissions and burning the planet alive. The second topic I'm going to talk about is food. Now, food is such an important topic because I think a lot of the times, and I will have the privilege of saying this, is that I don't get so much hate for food waste. I think sometimes saying that I'm vegan gives me a lot of privileges to avoid any accountability when it comes to food waste. So for anyone that grew up poor, we didn't really have the freedom. No, I didn't have the freedom to choose what groceries I wanted. Nor if I went to the grocery store and wanted something, maybe my parents would say yes in a very rare blue moon, but most of the time they're like, no, we have a budget, this is what we can get, this is what food stamps allow us to get. So I didn't really have any say. But what I will remember is that the moments that I would ever say I'm not hungry and I was eating a full plate of food, I would get my ass beat. Like, as a kid growing up in a Latin childhood, like, you do not tell your cultural parents after they serve you that you're not gonna eat this because you don't like it. I had to really force myself sometimes to eat meals that I didn't want to eat. But I remember, like, even my parents would be like, if you don't eat it now, then you're gonna eat it later, but you're gonna save that food. And I never really, growing up as a kid, I was like, wow, they're just being mean. But when I look back, I realized, like, I think they just didn't have the money to say, here's another option, or it's okay, we can just throw it away, don't worry. Instead, they told me, like, Isaias, like, we grew up as farmers, we grew our own food, like, we were taught to cook what you grow from the land, and this is what you're gonna eat. And they would try to tell me, like, look, I grew up in poverty and didn't have anything. You have it much more better to at least have access to food on your table where people are preparing it for you. And I remember as a young kid, I kind of rebelled and was like, yeah, whatever, it's not good food. But there was a very ungratefulness that came from my younger years of childhood. But as an adult today that has the economic freedom to buy anything I want, another lie is, like, the massive food waste that I generate. I will say that in my early years getting into this industry, I was not good at planning my groceries. In fact, I remember there was a time I was spending around $250 to $200 like every week and a half on groceries, buying Whole Foods. Like, that is such a huge privilege for anyone to be able to say I buy from Whole Foods. Like, I'm very grateful for the life I have today. Like, I'm so thankful to be able to do that, because I grew up eating from 99-cent store, food for less, like La Vallarta, which shout out to Vallarta because it's bomb-ass tortillas. But it's like, I feel like that's something where I'm not taking into account of, like, this is food that's grown organic, and yet there's moments where I would just forget to eat it, or where I would travel and I'm like, oh, I forgot to fill up or to clear my fridge, or, you know, give my produce to my neighbor, give my produce to my friend. But looking back at Isaias when he was a young kid, there was never a single day that I wasted food. And so food is something that I recognize that is another illusion and lie in this space that people try to have of, like, sustainable food and all this thing. It's like, yes, I'm vegan, yes, I don't eat meat, yes, I really reduce my carbon footprint through there, but it's like, even when I was poor, I didn't grow up eating meat every day. The next topic is technology. Now, I'm a 96 baby, and it's kind of weird because I'm like a cusp of millennial and then Gen Z. I don't know why, it's sometimes a very weird dynamic, but I'm also a Leo, so maybe that explains it. So a lot of kids growing up now probably have access to phones or computers, and it's kind of normalized or more accessible in global north countries that kids now grow up with certain types of technologies. I was a kid that did not have any cell phone until the age of 17. And it's really funny to say this, but also sad, is that I look at my older life today, I'm on my 4th or 5th iPhone today. And that's in the span of since 2014. That's ridiculous. Like, the amount of technology that I've been consuming for so long is such an environmental impact in a way. I also grew up not having access to a computer or laptop, and I used to sell chips, soda, and snacks to buy my first laptop. It was $220. And I remember I had sold candy chocolate chips for almost 3 months to save money to buy my first laptop. I was 15 or 16 in the 10th grade of high school. That laptop literally lasted me until I think junior or senior year of college. And this laptop was honestly not good. It literally would die the instant that it had to be charged. And a very funny moment is that I was doing a research paper once, and it was on Microsoft Word, and I didn't save it. This is before I had autosave. My friend accidentally tripped on my charger and disconnected, it turned off. And I lost my essay. But anyways, that was something I mourned. But I just remember, like, just being so frugal. I was a very frugal person. I did not consume. And now, like, you know, I bought an Apple laptop my senior year of college, and then 2-3 years later, after developing Career Brown Vegan, I bought a MacBook Pro. Did I really need a new MacBook Pro? No. And then I got gifted other laptops from companies that I worked at. And as a society, as you get more economic access, like, the more waste and the more items that you're given, it's like, I don't need that much things. Like, the fact that I was able to make best of what I had, despite the laptop being slow growing up and being like, damn it, I should have bought a better one. I was so thankful to have a laptop still. And it's reminded me that, sustainability goes beyond this idea of like, oh, look at the mission statements of the companies. Look at yourself and say how you could change yourself. It's about, did you redesign your mindset to survive? And I think someone that grew up in poverty and had that survival mindset, I don't want to romanticize that it was perfect sustainability, but there was more simplicity that I had to use and recognize like I don't have anything else, so this is the only thing I'm going to use. The next one I want to talk about is the consumption of items. I relied a lot on the swap meet, it's swap meet, my parents would call it. And the swap meet was basically, it's like called flea market, or now the gentrified form is like, I guess flea market. And they're not in Malibu, they're literally in like low-income communities of color. And these are all like, typically black and brown sellers. And I remember whenever I wanted to get something, let's say like a certain piece of clothing or technology, or I don't know, so like a snack or something, or a fruit, my parents would be like, let's go to the swap meet, you can finally find it there. We went into the idea that going to a swap meet meant that you had a curious and open mindset, meaning that you may not find this exact thing that you wanted, but you get something that's closely aligned to it. The swap meet actually offered accessibility because fun fact is that a lot of people at the swap meet negotiate. When I would go to different flea markets that were like, sometimes predominantly white people, and see the tags of like $85, I'm like, 85? Like the swap meet's like different. There's no price tag. You just grab the piece of item or clothing, you're like, para cuánto? And then people are like, $5, and you're like, $3, and then they're like, $4, you're like, $3.50. Sell. That's the culture that I grew up in, going up to people. My parents would send me as kids to go barter with the older people because the parents or the people that were older felt bad for the kids, so they're like, okay, I'll give you a good price for it. So those are things that I recognize, like if I need to sell, like repair something, you go to a local swap meet vendor that repairs. You lost your key, find the key maker that will help find your key or make a new copy of the key. These are all like local economies ideas, and I think like as a person now, like, with access, it's like now people can just go to Amazon. They're like, let me buy a product. And there was a time where I was using Amazon a lot. I was just like buying products. So like, I need exactly this, so I'll get that. It was never the idea of looking at Facebook groups or other things to be like, can I barter, can I trade? And I feel like the more income you make and the more, centered that you become in your career, the more that you focus on convenience over long time wait. And I think my parents taught me a lot of the value of waiting. The value of being able to say, you're not going to find exactly what you want, but you're going to find something better, even though it may not look like. And I will be honest, like everything that I have today that I bought from the swap meet, like, these jackets or other things, it's like they lasted me for so long. And I never need to go to a traditional market, which is why I always feel weird to go to malls or any luxury store sometimes, because I'm like, that's not who I am, and like, that's not who I am and what I believe in. But I recognize like I consume at a very faster rate now than what I did, and I really been recognizing like I need to go back to some of those roots and principles, but also check the privilege I have. Next thing is clothing. Okay, so there was this time I had my fast fashion boy era, my Forever 21 and H&M. Actually, one of my archived Instagram posts is literally me at the H&M mall and being like, just like having a beanie and I'm like having like my eyes closed and I'm just like hashtag H&M, hashtag cool. And it's like, this is 2014 college me, like this is Isaias, so he's developing his new style. And I had grown up my entire life with thrifted clothing. Like my parents were like, no, hell no, we're never taking you to the mall. Or like, why would you want to go to the mall and pay $30 for this dumb t-shirt when you can get a beautiful vintage t-shirt for $10 or $5? And I was like, the fast fashion one sounds better. And that's because of consumption of our society. And so I really, after the first year of my freshman year, I dropped my fast fashion era. I was like, this is ridiculous. These clothes are like not good. They're cheap. I feel like they're not timeless. And so I started to reinvest back into my wardrobe of what I had. Like a lot of the clothes I got is from my dad or my brother, that they passed it down to me. And I feel like I'm so much happier with that type of lifestyle because clothes means so much. But now it's like as a digital media creator, like I don't know, I really am hesitant to promote a lot of fashion companies. Like I don't really promote any clothing companies if you see me, because the space is very controversial. Obviously there's a lot of greenwashing. With that being said, I think my conclusion about sustainability being a myth for those that are upper middle class or rich or have some access to at least six-figure salaries is that we recognize and give suffrage and honorage to those that are working class and poor that are probably the most sustainable. The idea that these, even myself, I'm being very critical of myself and I'm trying to be critical of others, but me as an environmental media creator, recognizing that I am not the most sustainable. I studied sustainability, maybe I practiced sustainability when I was younger, but I think there's a lot of nuances that I live in these dimensional spaces, and I wish that we can hopefully bring these conversations forward when we talk about perfect environmentalism or the idea of who's a sustainability expert, because to me it's like I'm not a sustainability expert. I'm really not. I'm a sustainability advocate. Do I think I engage in sustainability practices? Yes, but that's because I was poor and was deprived of resources and had to do what I had to do. But now I realize like those are a lot of things that made me happy. But I think it is a privilege to be able to feel happy of doing those practices I used to do when I was growing up, because back then I felt ashamed to do that. So I think there's a shame factor that needs to be unlocked from there, and hopefully we can move forward with these conversations. But let me know what you think about sustainability being a myth. Do you think it's an illusion for a lot of media creators? Do you think that, we shouldn't be calling ourselves sustainable people? What do you think? What do you want to know? And let me know. And feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, as supporting this video really helps me think about free-flowing topics that I want to talk to you all about. Thanks.